Anyway, we're going to read this paper from Cinesemiotics. This is called Human-like robot hands controlled by brain activity arouse illusion of ownership in operators in Scientific Reports back in 2013 by Mariam Alimardani, Shuichi Nishio, and Hiroshi Ishiguro. Aha. I apologize how I say all your names. Okay, so this is like science. So I don't normally do science, but, sometimes I do science. We'll see. Okay, but it starts off very philosophy-ish. The mind-body relationship has always been an appealing question to human beings. How we identify our body and use it to perceive ourselves is an issue that has fascinated many philosophers and psychologists throughout history, but only in the past few decades has it become possible to empirically investigate the mechanism of self-perception. Oh yeah, if any of you guys have questions, like if you're all doing, like, want to talk about other stuff, I'm open to talking about, like, other stuff, so you can throw your questions in chat too. It's like, I hope juggling you're doing well, Retheus. Oh, music is loud. Okay. There we go. Yeah, some of the songs in this list are a little too loud, and it unfortunately goes up and down. It was already at the lower setting, but now it's much lower. Okie doke. Our recent developed human-like androids have become new tools for investigating how humans perceive their own body and correspond it to their self. Operators of these teleoperated androids report unusual feelings of being transformed into robot's body. Into the robot's body or robot's body? Like, it's into that particular body or into having a body of a robot? See, like, the little grammatical thing here is, I'm not sure, like, because it looks like we've got some non-English, like, primary speakers just based on their names. They're out of Osaka and Kyoto. So I don't know, but, like, that's weird. Being transformed into robot's body. Yeah, cyborg versus android thing going on. Yeah, yep. Okay, well, we'll see. I'm sure they'll get to it. This sensation of owning a non-body object, generally called the illusion of body ownership transfer, was first scientifically reported as the rubber hand illusion. Following rubber hand illusion, many researchers have studied the conditions under which the illusion of body ownership transfer can be induced. I think that was one of those things where, like, they had, like, people, like, so you had your hand on, like, a table or something, and then what they did was, like, you hid your hand, like, you put your wrist down, and then they had, like, a rubber hand there where your regular hand was, and, like, I think you started to imagine, like, the rubber hand where your normal hand was, somehow, you were afraid for, like, it getting hurt or something. Yeah. In these works, the feeling of owning a non-body object was mainly challenged by the manipulation of sensory inputs, vision, touch, proprioception, that are congruently supplied to the subject from his own body and a fake body. In previously reported illusions, the correlation of at least two channels of the sensory information was indispensable. Either the illusion was passively evoked by synchronized visual, tactile, or tactile proprioceptive stimulation, or it was evoked by synchronized visual proprioceptive stimulation in voluntarily performed actions. Okay, so I guess what happened was they were touching your hand at the same time they were touching the rubber hand that you could see, and then so you somehow imagined that since they were touching your hand in the same way that the rubber hand was being touched, that was sort of getting you to associate with the rubber hand. And proprioception means like self-touching. So like this is a proprioceptive thing when you're like tapping the fingers together, because it's different from like something else poking you. When you get feedback on both sides, that's sort of unique. So that's the thing. Hume causation. Yeah, so you're associating the correlation of something being touched at the same time you're touched with you getting touched in like your hand or whatever. So that's right. Okay. However, the question remains, you think it could be the same principle? It's definitely in the neighborhood. Is this the some Merleau-Ponty plus robots shit? Yes, Valpo. I think that's it. And welcome in, Valpo. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, this is the old it was requested. Human-like robot hands controlled by brain activity arouse illusion of ownership in operators. So this is the you start to think you are the robot when you're sort of controlling it. So yeah. I get if they're using the word proprioceptive, I assume they are thinking some Merleau-Ponty. Okay. However, the question remains whether body ownership illusions can be induced without the correlation of multiple sensory modalities. We are specifically interested in the role of sensory inputs in evoking motion-involved illusions. In such illusions which are aroused by triggering a sense of agency toward the action of a fake body, at least two different signals, vision and proprioception, need to be integrated with efferent, I don't know what this word is, signals to generate a coherent self-presentation. Merleau-Ponty was a psychologist in, I think he died in like either the early 50s or late 40s. I think very early, and yeah, it's proprioception. It's this is the word that is proprioceptive. It's a feedback. It means it's a perception of like sort of a feedback. So like if you touch your own hand, like if you're like snapping your fingers, or you're like going like this, then you are feeling your own hand by your own hand. Now that's different from like feeling something like, okay, I'm getting poked here. Like that's different. Because when you have feedback on both sides, it's not reducible to any other kind of sensation. So the fact that you can like like one hand clapping or whatever, that feels different from any other sort of thing. So there's a feedback loop on this stuff. And Merleau-Ponty was saying this is really a very primary understanding of ourselves, that we're like when we like, you can touch your own face, all sorts of stuff, and then how you interact with the world is this sort of this feedback loop. And that's kind of like our primary interaction with the world. You can like do a lot of things, like how do you grasp the glass? Well, you get a feedback, like the pressure that lets you know that you are grasping it at a sufficiently tight grip so it doesn't fall out of your hand. Dagnabbit, pre-rolled ads are back. I'm very sorry. But so yeah, if you want to talk about like how you interact with things, a lot of this feedback between how you are like moving around in the world, and that's that sort of thing. Cinesemiac says, "Oh, that's why they say if you sit on your hand until you get tingles, it feels like someone else is touching you." Aha, yes. Yeah, so that's the thing. Like it's a very creepy thing when you lose feeling in your hand, and like that's part of it. I once, when I was a kid, I fell asleep with like one leg under the other in a bad way, and like my foot like basically got cold. It was a cold foot, and I freaked out when I was a kid because it felt like there was a dead foot in my bed because I couldn't feel it from it just felt like I didn't have any feeling because like it had lost sensation, and then my other foot was like touching a cold foot, and it was very freaky. But yeah, so so if you have any more, I don't know if I can explain. I mean, if you have more questions about proprioception, let me know. It's not it's very easy to describe when you're saying like talk about feedback and you go like this, but like the expansion of it, like what it is to be in an interactive relationship with like the world, is a little bit more complicated, and that's what Merleau-Ponty was going on about. Okay. Walsh et al. Recently discussed the contribution of proprioceptive feedback of the inducement of the ownership illusion for an anesthetized moving finger. They focused on the exclusive role of the sensory receptors in muscles by eliminating the cutaneous signal from skinning joints. Unlike that study, in this work we hypothesized that even in the absence of proprioceptive feedback, only the match between the efferent signals and visual feedback can trigger a sense of agency toward the robot's motion and therefore induce the illusion of body ownership for the robot's body. Yeah, so I assume what happened was like if you were wearing a glove and you like did like one like a motion like thing, and then you saw the robot do the same thing, you're still getting feedback from like the glove you're wearing to make it feel like you're moving. And so they're saying even if you don't get that feedback from like the glove to show that you're moving, then you still won't. It still will happen that you feel like the robot's hand is yours. So maybe they did like some sort of visual tracking. Evolve yourself. How you doing? I'm okay. What's going on? Evolve Yourself is also a streamer. He's an excellent streamer. He is also a philosopher, advanced degrees in philosophy. So we got Evolve Yourself here, and everyone should go hang out there and drop him a follow. Do the shout out also. There we go. If you're not already following him, you can click the link at the top of your chat, and you can just one-click follow. Thank you, Twix, for one good thing in that sort of thing. But yeah, hope you're doing well. Like I said, does science, metaphysics, mind, chess tutor, and does a lot of more holistic things on his stream, like chakra balancing, but also discusses a lot of interesting stuff. So yeah, we're reading this paper on. This is human-like robot hands controlled by brain activity arouse the illusion of the ownership and operators. So this is some old science research, but it's fun stuff to talk about. Why do we all of a sudden start feeling like a robot hand is our hand when we're controlling it? So, and these people are saying, look, you don't even have to get any feedback. Just sort of seeing the robot do what you think it's doing is gonna make you think it's you. So that's what we're doing. Exactly. They mentioned the rubber hand experiment up here, right there. So like this is next level rubber hand. All right, so in this study, we employed a BMI system to translate operators' thoughts into robots' motions. Oh, they went straight from operators' thoughts into robots' motions and removed the proprioceptive updates of real motion from operators' sensations. BMIs were primarily developed as a promising technology for future prosthetic limbs. To that end, the incorporation of these devices into a patient's body representation also become considerable. Infernal, how you doing? What's going on? We're talking right now about, human-like robot hands controlled by brain activity. And then people sort to think it's theirs. Anne's an excellent streamer too. Also has advanced degrees in sociology. And everyone should give Infernal a follow. But she usually plays games and a lot of just chatting on her stream. So, but good peoples. So, go give Anne a follow if you have not yet. Yeah, so we're discussing if you have the rubber hand, like if there's like a rubber hand out there and it's like it feels like what you're doing is what the rubber hand's doing, all of a sudden you start to feel like that rubber hand is yours. But what these folks did in this paper, because there's a little science that Cinesemiotics recommended, they have put things in someone's brain that's controlling it, so there's no feedback. You're not even you don't feel like you're wearing a glove. All right. So they've incorporated these devices into a patient's body. Representation also becomes considerable. Investigation on monkeys has shown that bidirectional communication in brain-machine brain interface contributes to the incorporation of a virtual hand in a primate's brain circuitry. Okay, so if you get like a hand control machine in your brain makes space to have an extra hand. That's cool. I mean, that's a little science fiction-y, but like that's kind of fun. Okay, such closed-loop multi-channel BMIs which deliver visual feedback and such multiple sensory information as cortically microstimulated tactile or proprioceptive-like signals are conceived as future generations of prosthetics to feel and act like a human body. All right, so now they're thinking that you're even going to get, like, even if you have, like, brain sensors to control a hand, you're also going to have brain sensors to get, like, feedback. How is life? Life is difficult. But we're making it somehow. Yeah. I don't know. It's been a rough few days for some reason. I've just been grumpy. Can't get a whole lot done. But I have a buddy leaving town. So that's sad. Whatever. He's moving to DC. Not too far. But I won't be seeing him that regularly anymore. And, yeah. I don't know. I can't get my damn alerts working, which is driving me nuts too. Like, it's just kind of very silly. I'm like, why is my alerts not working? It's a fucking thing. Okay. But anyway, yeah, how are you doing, Ann? Do you see where this line of thinking goes with respect to immersive VR films? I mean, there's always a. I know you're in DC. Like, you're not that far away, but I haven't been down to DC since many, many years. But yeah, so it's like I got a buddy going down there. He's like, "You have to come visit. I have an extra bedroom." I'm like, "Okay." I mean, the porn industry has always been at the cutting edge of tech. But I don't really see like if you were there, like they've always wanted to do the brain stimulation of for porn and like other things, but like I'm not exactly sure um what like how far you can push this, because no one's going to be getting a brain implant to do porn. Like, there's easier ways to get yourself off than getting brain implants. There's just vibrators and whatnot, toys that you can just get, which are highly sophisticated in themselves. But like I see where this line of thinking could go, but like it's like one of those, like, why would it go this way when there's more effective and better things we have? Granted, they need to be cleaned, but you did not mean porn. I was like, yeah, I think that's exactly where you're going, because I know I have a buddy who had one of these headsets, and he said the porn was amazing. With like the 360 degree stuff, I was like, oh, that sounds great. So I was just, when I was thinking about this, like I was, you meant for your consciousness? Well, I mean, what do you mean then? Like, because you think there's immersive VR films, it'll just be very immersive. But like, why would, what would that? I don't see what it means for consciousness, because it would just be like you're taking a vacation to whatever virtual world that was created for virtual reality. So, well, I know that. I was not trying to say what you were like. I was not trying to put it on you, but I don't understand, like, what exactly does it mean for consciousness on the line to VR films. You let me know, because I don't. Mine was like, well, if you're having a proprioceptive act in a film and you're getting a phantom limb, then it's like, well, what kind of phantom limb, like, are we talking about in films? Like, why would we want a phantom limb? And there's a few reasons why I can imagine having a phantom limb in films. One of them would be porn. So you think Westworld, but you get to be a host remotely, not like physically present. You see, that's exactly why I was thinking porn, because frankly, the fun of Westworld is like being there. You get to do crazy things and fun things, but like I don't see why your consciousness like, it's like, yeah, you get to go do things, but it's like that seems just like a very highly sophisticated video game where you could go be a yeah, you get to go have fun, but like as a remote thing. But I don't see why that would exactly like, that just seems like being in the video game to me. Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure how that all day. Yeah, well, that's fair. But like that, like, it'll just be very good for video gaming. But like, I don't see how that affects consciousness. It'll just, like, you can get lost in that world, and that seems like what all the tech people want with like the metaverse and all. But like, that's, I don't. Okay, you're gonna, yeah. See, if you're gonna have a break in what you think of like is the real world, that's fair. Like, that'll happen. Like, we're gonna have people who have who dissociate from not being able to tell what's real and what isn't, because they're gonna spend like part of the time in one area and then the other, and things are gonna get shaky. But yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know you understand the movie aspect of this stuff pretty well, so like there's you might have some more ideas. But the metaverse, as far as the tech giants go that are trying to push this on us, I don't think it's gonna work. It's for the same reason that the porn thing I was saying. Look, porn's great if you like porn, whatever. But like, again, it's like you are not actually getting the tactile feedback that you need for like, a relationship. So the point is, like, there's better things to do than to like be in a VR world if you want to get like physical feedback. Like, find a person, find a toy, whatever. But like, that's a thing. There's other ways of going about this that I think are less invasive than what than like brain interfaces, which is what we're talking about here. Okay. In our experiment, I'll continue. In our experiment, Cinema says it's not movies about whatever movies are about to morph into, like iPhone revolutionized the way people are engaged with the internet. Oh yeah, like it'll be more like an interactive video game, like you're gonna be participating in that world. I completely agree. And then they'll have like, you know, giant like stories you can be part of, and it'll be exciting or something. But yeah. But like, yeah, Ready Player One style, where like everyone's part of this, like everyone's just wearing like VR goggles all over the place. I have a hard time buying that sort of future at the moment. It's like VR is very expensive, and I just don't think the experience is there yet. So yeah, next tech could immerse us so deeply that we feel it as if it's real. Yeah, I'm just waiting to see. I'm kind of skeptical on our tech at the moment. People always think the tech is gonna go up and like just be fantastic. A lot of times it's you know, the fun thing about the iPhone, it wasn't that the tech was like what people thought it was. It was that the shrinking of all the tech made it more easy to take with us. And like, so it wasn't like you didn't need the fastest computer anymore. You needed the smallest computer that could fit in your pocket and run on low power. And it's like that sort of thing is like, that's not what people were expecting. And so when that revolutionized things, that's different. But like, this is not sort of like the grand immersion that I think people are imagining, like in Ready Player One, like sort of the Matrix style stuff. Yeah, we'll see. But when we get that immersed so deeply that we feel it's real, I mean, people go to cults basically all the time. You can go get yourself immersed in any sort of weird reality right now. You don't need to go to tech to go get immersed in a cult. Basically, you can just go find yourself your local cult, and you can go get yourself immersed in a very strange world, and you can then have a psychotic break. Like that, people do that all the time. We don't even need tech for that. We've been doing that for a very long time. So yeah, people like are losing their family members over politics nowadays. It's very bad. It's like you don't need to go anywhere or do anything. You can just sit around watching news, like daytime, like cable news all day. That's all you need. Anyway, in our experiment, subjects conducted a set of motor imagery tasks of right or left grasps, and their online EEG signals were classified into two classes of right or left hand motions performed by a robot. During teleoperation, they wore a head-mounted display and watched real-time first perspective images of the robot's hands. Cinemax says, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't know the first thing about how to go about finding my local cult, but if they were technologies easily available to me that I could purchase, I would just use those. Well, I mean, yeah, you have to go, like, you know how to get yourself onto some online forums and go search out some weird things. Like, I don't know where the cults are either, but like, there's plenty of like weird things you can find on the internet. I don't actually think it's that hard to go find them. You know, it's like, go find your least favorite political people, and then go find the people that are the craziest version of that, and you're gonna get some crazy stuff. Okay, so down here you can see this is figure 1. So basically there's a first let's see if I can zoom in on this a little bit. So what you've got is, this is your mannequin here, it looks like, and then they've got a camera that's just above the person's head, and so it looks like you have the view of someone like right, almost first person. Now the actual person, that's right over here. This is this visual feedback, so the actual person is seeing what this is looking like, and then over here, this is what the person's doing. They got a headset on with EEGs, recording the hand motion thoughts in the thoughts there that are you know, translating the left hand motion, right hand motion into the motion of the robot over here. So they're seeing the visual feedback of their thoughts, but they're not actually holding any of the little lit up balls, apparently. So, yeah. So that's interesting. You're just going to Google how to join a cult. I wonder what Google does about that, actually. They may just say, hey, here's your local insanity hotline. No one thinks they're going to join a cult. They just go think they're in a really cool club with like smart people. I'm like, yeah. Results. 40 subjects participated in the BMI operation experiment. They operated a robot's hands. Yeah, I didn't want to call anyone out specifically, Inferno, but yes. I was trying to be a little bit careful there, but yeah, I mean, you go find QAnon people. They're not hard to find. They're around. Maybe they're harder to find now. I don't know. But like, there used to be a guy at work who was kind of big into QAnon. This was during Donald Trump's rise to power in the United States. And it was like, well, there was a lot of questions. Like, maybe Donald Trump is willing to, shake things up and do good things, and maybe there are people who are in the government that he needs to get rid of. Like, no one knew that. Well, everyone knew Donald Trump was full of shit, but he was willing to believe for whatever reason that things could be better, and like that maybe Donald Trump was like trying to make them better. He was young. Let's put it that way. Not dumb, but just young and inexperienced. He didn't realize exactly all the things that would have to go on for that to actually be the case. He was willing to believe, to think that he was a smart kid, so he wanted to think he understood things better than other people. He understood what was going on, and he sort of got wrapped up in it. But yeah, so I wonder what he's up to now. I don't know. Okay, So they operated a robot's hands while watching them through a head-mounted display. Each participant formed the following 2 randomly conditioned sessions. 1. Still condition. The robot's hands did not move at all, even though the subject performed the imagery task and tried to operate the robot's hands. So it was the control. They said try to get the robot to squeeze the lit-up balls, and that was control, because they weren't actually connected to the robot. 2, and then there's the match-based condition. Based on the classification results, the robot's hands performed a grasp motion, but only when the result was correct. If the subject missed a trial, the hand did not move. Okay, so you had to think, they were told you to think grasp left hand, you had to then attempt to think in the right way to grasp with your left hand. And if you did it correctly at the right time, you would then see the robot grasping with their left hand. So, the subjects were unaware of the condition setups. In both sessions, they were told that precise performance of the motor imagery would produce a robot motion. To ease imagining and give a visual cue for the motor imagery tasks, 2 balls were placed in front of the robot's hands that randomly lighted to indicate which hand the subject were required to move. Okay, so the balls lit up, you see the one light up, that meant you had to squeeze that hand. At the end of each test session, a syringe was inserted into the thenar muscle of the robot's left hand. Immediately after the injection, the session was terminated and the participants were asked the following questions. Question 1. When the robot's hand was injected, did it feel as if your own hand was receiving the injection? Question 2. Throughout the entire session while you were operating the robot's hands, did it feel as if they were your own hands? Participants' answers to questions 1 and questions 2 were scored based on a 7-point Likert scale, where 1 denoted didn't feel anything at all, and 7 denoted felt very strongly. Okay, so that's a little freaky. So you've been looking at these hands as if they're your own, and then they inject you with some substance into that, not your hand, but what you were treating as if was your hand. The acquired scores for each condition were averaged and compared within subjects by paired t-test. The Q1 results were significant between the match and still conditions. Match was greater than still with a p-value of 0.0001. T30, I don't know what these numbers mean. Maybe some scientist in the chat can explain what the match versus the still conditions. Match was 2.83, still was the control was 1.43. So I don't know. Okay, Yeah. Okay, so the max when the max was 4.38 versus I'm not sure how to read these things. I just don't know. But they say it's significant. That's the point. The significance between the max and still conditions. And so the results are what they expected it to be, that people thought it was more like their hand. Okay, in addition to the self-assessment, we physiologically measured the body ownership illusion by recording the skin conductance responses. We only evaluated the skin conductance responses recordings of 34 participants, since 6 participants were excluded from analysis because they showed unchanged responses during the experiment. The peak response value with a 6-second interval was selected as the SCR reaction value. The SCR results were also significant, although the subject's responses were spread out over a large range of values. So that means, I guess, maybe people started sweating when they saw the needle going in or something, or there was a other like physiological reaction right there. So the skin conductance. So that might be like, I'm assuming they're measuring skin conductance as a function of like liquid or something on the hands. So okay, discussion. From both the questionnaire and the SCR results, we can conclude that the operator reactions to a painful stimulus, the injection, were significantly stronger in the max condition, in which the robot's hands followed the operator's intentions. This reaction is evident for the body ownership illusion and verifies our hypothesis. We showed that body ownership transfer to the robot's moving hands can be induced exclusive of the proprioceptive feedback from an operator's actual movements. This is the first report of body ownership transfer to a non-body object that is induced without integration among multiple afferent inputs. So that means there was nothing in the person's hand. I don't know how well you can see this picture, but like there's electrodes on the person's hand down here, like in which way am I pointing? At the bottom here. So there's like electrodes down here, but there's nothing actually in the person's hand. And so since there's nothing in the person's hand right here, they don't get the feedback of like actually feeling the ball or anything like that. Maybe they get a little bit of feedback from like the motion of their hand, but like they're trying to take away as much of that as possible. So this is the first time they've ever done an experiment where there was no feedback whatsoever of like feeling like you're actually grasping a ball when the robot is grasping a ball. In the present illusion, a correlation between efferent information, the operator's plane of motion, and a single channel of sensory input, visual feedback of the intended motion, was enough to trigger the illusion of body ownership. Yeah, so it was only what you were thinking and what you were seeing, even though that wasn't your body anymore. Since this illusion occurs in the context of action, we estimate that the sense of ownership for the robot's hand is modulated from the sense of agency generated for the robot hand motions. Although the participants were perfectly aware that the congruently placed hands they were watching through the head-mounted display were non-body human-like objects, the explicit sense that I am the one causing the motion of the hands and the lifelong experience of performing motions for their own bodies modulated the sense of body ownership toward the robot hands and provoked the illusion. I mean, it's kind of hard to disagree with this. How do you, like, if you're seeing hands and that look enough like your hands and they're doing what you're thinking about them doing, then it kind of, I can see why people would say, well, that kind of is my hand. Like, I don't know if you can see again. Like, there's a needle, like a giant big old needle up here under the B, like right up here. So, like, if you saw this, like going into a hand that you've been controlling for the last few minutes, I could see that freaking out a little bit, especially if you're not someone who likes needles. The original ownership illusion for teleoperated androids mentioned at the beginning of this paper was a visual proprioceptive illusion due to the motion synchronization between the operator and the robot's body. The mechanism behind this illusion can be explained based on a cognitive model that integrates one's body to oneself in a self-generated action. Okay, so what they're saying here is when you are looking at your own hand and it's doing what you're doing, that's a self-generated action that integrates your own body. This is the proprioception that we were talking about earlier. You are seeing your own motion, your own actions happening. So from your perspective, you're seeing your own hand moving. That is a kind of feedback loop. That's what proprioceptive means. So when operators move their bodies and watch the robot copying them, the match between the motion commands, those are the efferent signals carrying both raw and processed predictive information, and the sensory feedback from the motion, visual afference from the robot's body and proprioceptive afference from the operator's body, modulates a sense of agency over the robot's actions and ultimately results into the integration of robot's body into the operator's sense of self-body. In this paper, we particularly targeted the role of proprioception in this model and showed that our presented mechanism remains valid even when the proprioceptive feedback channel is blocked from being updated. Yeah, so that means even when you aren't getting you can't really get any feedback, like it's not getting updated, then you can still feel it, because like the hand of the robot is not, you're not getting any like needle prick feedback when that is when the robot hand is getting stabbed by the needle. Okay, an important element associated with the occurrence of the illusion is the new paradigm of the an important element associated with the occurrence of the illusion in the new paradigm is probably the attention subjects paid to the operation task. Motor imagery is a difficult process that requires increasing attention and concentration. Subjects focus on picturing a grasp motion to cause action, and their selective attention to the visual feedback of movement can play a noticeable role in filtering out such distracting information as the different size and texture of the visible hands, and the delay between the onset of motor imagery and the robot's motions, and the subconscious sense of the real hand position. Yeah, so I guess there's always going to be like feedback from like that head mounted display into the robot actually, grasping or whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the sort of thing. And that's going to break the illusion there. On the other hand, the exclusive significant role of visual feedback in the process of body attribution is disputable, since the cutaneous signals of the subject's real body were not blocked. Yeah, you could still feel your hand, like they didn't block the hand sensors. Like they didn't like numb the people's hands, which would have been also interesting if they did that at the same time. This may reflect the effect of the movement-related gating of sensory signals before and during the execution of self-generated movements. In a voluntary movement, feed-forward efferent copy signals predict the expected outcome of the movement. This expectation modulates the incoming sensory input and reduces the transmission of tactile inputs. Such attenuation of sensory inputs has also been reported at the motor planning stage and has been found in the neural patterns of primates prior to the actual onset of voluntary movements. Okay, so they're saying basically that when you think you're going to move, like that changes the physiology of the part of the hand that's moving to like prepare for feedback. And so that whole system is still operational here and is making you ready to receive feedback, I guess. Okay, so these findings support the idea of a pre-movement elevation of a tactile perception threshold during motor imagery tasks. Therefore, the suppression or the gating of peripheral signals may have enhanced the relative salience of other inputs, which in this case are visual signals. Yeah, so if like they're screwing with, if like I guess there's predictive chemicals that go into your hand when you're like ready to do something, like maybe your muscles get ready. So that may have actually affected how people reacted to the visual stimulus. Okay. Although in this work we discussed motor-visual interaction based on a previously introduced cognitive mechanism of body recognition, evidence exists that the early stages of movement preparation not only occur in the brain's motor centers, but may also occur simultaneously in the spinal levels. This suggests that even in the absence of a subject's movement, further sensory circuitry may in fact be engaged in the presented mechanism at the level of motor planning. Yeah, so different parts of the brain spine may all be going into this, and since all of that isn't blocked, there's other things going on there than just the visual feedback. Okay. Correspondingly, although subjects were strictly prevented from performing grasp motions by their own hands, regardless of such instruction, it is probable that a few of them did occasionally involuntarily contract their upper arm muscles. Such a possibility prompts the argument on the complete cancellation of proprioceptive feedback. In the future, further experiments with EMG recordings are required to improve the consistency of our results by excluding participants whose performance involved muscle activity. Yeah, so if they like numbed a person's arm completely, or maybe even like someone who has a, like quadriplegic, like that would be interesting because they can't get that feedback from their body. Okay. Finally, from the observations of this experiment and many other studies, we conclude that for inducing illusions of body transfer, the congruence between only two channels of information, either efferent or afferent, is sufficient to integrate a non-body part to one's own body, regardless of the context in which the body transfer experience occurs. In passive or externally generated experiences, the integration of two sensory modalities from both non-body and body parts was indispensable. However, in voluntary actions, since efferent signals play a critical role in the recognition of one's own motions, their congruence with only a single channel of visual feedback from non-body part motions was adequate to override the internal mechanism of body ownership. Okay. Yeah. So basically, yeah, is there anything else to know in any of this? No. This is just details of all the things, like what was the head-mounted display. It was the Vuzix eyewear VR920. But yeah, so that's fun. So this basically means that even with restricting things to feedback as much as you can without like basically chopping someone's arm off, you can get people to like feel like they have ownership of, android parts, robot parts. So, yeah. Which is interesting. And they were saying that in monkeys, it seems like the brain reserved a part when you did this sort of experiment with them over time. The brain sort of reserved an area for like controlling that extra hand with that part of the brain. So like the brain reacted to this by creating a new way of like dedicating some resources to like trying to figure out how to control that thing. So it looks like it's the brain can act on its own. Now, right at the end there, they were saying, look, maybe there's more to it, like the spinal cord and other parts of the brain, like the arms and like the nerves are all playing a role here. So there's a question. But yeah. But like, yeah, if it's only your brain activity, then maybe we really can get a sense of a body representation in a virtual world. So, and of course, like there's, any number of VTubers on Twitch right now, and I'm sure they actually get a sense of like their body as it is in the VTube space. I should do that just for fun, like to try out like a VTube character and see what it's like to have all the tracking. It got to be a fun thing. But anyway, any questions about this? Like, it's interesting stuff, but it's science. Basically, you read what they did, and then the discussion is, they're just talking about like what the basic stuff is. It's not like philosophy where you have to like go analyze all the different like opinions. It's like, here's what we did, here's what we think it means, boom, done, thank you. Which is nice, but again, you have to something like this is accessible, where you have this sort of fun setup here. So, nope, too much. Why does it do that? It doesn't go to 300, it goes to 400 immediately. I don't really like that. Or go to 250. So like you can try to get like all of this on the screen at once so you guys can see what's going on. Yeah, so this is basically it. If like you have a setup like this where you're trying to you imagine squeezing some rubber balls and then they stab the android hand right here. Like they like always do that. And then they stab that poor android's hand like in what's it called? Dude, Where's My Car? They beat up a mannequin. And the guy's like, you're beating up my friend. That's like you end up feeling like your hand got stabbed almost, because you're thinking that is your hand from this sort of even though you know it's not. And that's the question. What's the difference between knowing it's not your hand and then acting as if it is your hand? Like, is that a belief at that point? Is it something else? I don't know. But like, there's a discussion here of what is it that you know versus you believe versus you feel, and that's not so easy. Okay, cool. So